Today, I'm going to explain a British psychological thriller film called Exam. Watch out for some spoilers ahead. At the beginning of the movie, 8 candidates are shown getting ready for a hiring examination for a profitable corporate job. Some candidates motivate themselves with encouraging words, while some add a few touch-ups to their appearances before moving to the examination hall. The examination hall is dimly lit, with desks for every candidate kept uniformly throughout the room. It also has cameras to monitor their activities. After the 8 candidates are seated, a guard with a gun enters the room. This makes the candidates more nervous. He is followed by a man who doesn't tell them his name and simply introduces himself as the invigilator. He tells them to listen to every word he says since there would be no repetition. He then apologizes to them for the hardships that they have faced to reach to the room, revealing that the candidates have passed all the previous hiring processes and that they are the finalists. If they pass this last test, they will be getting the job of their dreams. As the rule of this test, the invigilator claims that no federal law applies inside the examination hall, and the candidates are supposed to follow only the law of the exam. He says that there is only one question ahead of the candidates, and only one answer is required. He added by saying that they're not allowed to communicate with the guard or the invigilator. Similarly, if they ruin the paper intentionally or accidentally, or if anyone chooses to leave the room for any reason, they will be disqualified. The invigilator said that the candidates have 80 minutes to convince the company that they have what it takes to join them, and 80 minutes to determine the next 80 years of their lives. The candidate will have 80 minutes to complete the test. The invigilator then asks them if they have any questions. When no one answers, he wishes them good luck, starts the timer, and walks out. The candidates turn their respective papers around only to see that they are completely blank. All of them look at each other in confusion. As time passes, they become more nervous. Candidate number 2 starts writing on her paper the reason as to why she thinks she is eligible for the job. The camera in the room zooms into her paper, and the guard is told to throw her out because she ruined her paper, which means she had gone contrary to the rules. Number 2 begs for a second chance as the automatic door locks itself. A while later, candidate number 5 realizes that the rule says they cannot talk to both the invigilator and the guard, which means they can talk to each other. He takes a risk to speak and tells the others the same thing, making them believe that they will have to work together to find what the question is before they can answer it. That was a brilliant move by candidate number 5. The group discusses several ways they can pass the test, but all of them are just as confused. This is just like real. Throughout this, candidate number 1 doesn't speak at all. One man tries to introduce himself, but candidate number 5 suggests they give each other pseudonames so they wouldn't have to reveal their true identity. Wow, this illustrates that candidate number 5 is brilliant and has high problem anticipation power. He goes ahead to give them names. Candidate number 1 was given Deaf as his name because he hadn't spoken yet. Then the guys are named Brown, Black, and White, according to their race. Let's all agree that was some racist shit done by candidate number 5. Whereas the girls are named Blonde, Brunette, and Dark according to their hair color. After that, White suggests they get up from their seats because there is no rule that prohibits them not to stand. He takes a risk and gets up to everyone's delight. The guard stays at his position, that meaning that they can move around freely. This act by White gave other 6 candidates the courage to help in solving the question that they should get an answer to. Brunette adds that she believes that the questions are written down on paper with invisible ink or a watermark. They all agree to test the theory, but do not know how. Brunette gets up and uses the lights in the room to see if something is written on the paper. However, nothing is visible. She insists that everyone should check their own because the question could be in just one of them. Everyone does, as she says, except for Deaf. Candidate number 1 who stays quietly in his seat. White takes his paper and checks it in the light, then returns it back to Death. When they do not get any results, Black suggests the writings might be visible in UV rays or infrared lights. The group then starts looking for a switchboard to see if there is any option to turn on other kinds of lights. When they do not find one, they start to look for the source of such light themselves. Death doesn't help them whatsoever and nervously stays in his seat. Soon, Blonde finds some strips of emergency lights in the room, but since there are no switches, the group has to break all the other light bulbs to create an emergency and to trigger the lights to switch on. Brown retaliates by saying that they cannot take such a risk, so they vote on the matter and eventually decide to go forth with the plan. After breaking all the light bulbs in the room, it eventually glows blue because of the emergency black light. Everyone starts to look for the question in the paper except for Death, but they are disappointed again because they cannot see the question. Brunette asks everyone to remove the first layer of the strip light because they aren't LED. She says that this might give rise to UV rays, which can help them. They use the women's high heel shoes to break the strips and reveal another form of light. However, they are again met with disappointment because these lights do not work either. Now the group only has 60 minutes on the clock. The frustrated White tells everyone to think of alternative ideas that might be helpful. As they brainstorm, White suggests that they can do anything to number 2's paper since she is already disqualified. So they gather around her desk and try tracing the paper with a pencil. Still no question comes forth. White then tears her paper into sections so that they can use them to experiment with different methods they will discover. Next, he pees on one of the papers to see if it is liquid activated. However, that doesn't work either. Yep, I know you also wondering how an exam turned into a peeing contest. Anyway, Black and White get into a heated argument while discussing what they should do next. But they stop after hearing Death's sobbing sounds. He sobbed silently in his seat while the others watch him in amusement. After that, the man starts to blabber in French. They ask him if he can see anything in the paper, but he claims that the paper reflects their image. They do not think much about his black bearings since they assumed he is a crazy nerd who was talking about images rather than seeing a question. Yup, I know. So they got back into discussing ideas. Everyone falls dead silent. When Brown speaks, he proposes a theory that they are not in an exam, but are in some kind of betting show. The board members of the company have placed bets on who will crack under pressure, and the sole purpose of them being there is for their entertainment. It's evident that Brown has been watching some Squid Game lately. Brunette disagrees by saying that the board members probably have better things to do with their time. But according to Brown, money is the least of their concerns with the amount of money they have in their life. The board members probably leave for the risks and that they are betting on the ideas of the candidates in the room. Now everyone comes forward with their own ideas. Some claim that the invigilator might be behind this while others say it might be the CEO. They eventually begin to crack under pressure. Dark confidently says that there are no people watching them because the CEO is hands-on in the company. He has all of the company's rights and power over everyone. It is clear that she knows more about the company than anyone else. Brown asks her how she knows so much about the CEO. It turns out that Dark has already been working for the company in HR position, but has never seen the CEO. This keeps me wondering as well as you are. Once an advertisement popped up of a higher position, Dark applied for it, and now she is in the room with the other candidates. White then reveals that he was headhunted and offered the job, but the others say that they applied for it. However, one thing they have in common is that they do not know anything about the company, or what it does because they were told not to ask any question. Even Dark doesn't know what the company does despite being an HR manager. Dark then explains that they are applying for a famous multi-million-dollar pharmaceutical company called a few years ago. When a pandemic spread among young people of the world, they were the first ones to find the cure of the disease. Currently, their yearly turnover is $20 billion on because of their CEO. Suddenly, Black suggests that the company might have found a cure to the newest deadly disease that has been killing millions of people around the world. Brunette suddenly got intrigued and asks Dark, This makes White suspicious, and so he curiously asks Brunette if she is also infected by the virus. Brunette says she isn't and dismisses the matter to take the attention off of herself. She approaches the guard and brings a lighter out of his pocket without talking to him. Then she glances at the fire alarm. The group plans to use the lighter to trigger the sprinkler because they didn't know which liquid is in the pipes of the sprinkler. They thought that this can potentially develop the writing on the papers. For this, Brunette gets on top of a chair, but doesn't reach the fire alarm. White helps her by giving her a rolled-up piece of paper that she lights up and uses to trigger the alarm. Soon water starts showering, but the papers stay the same. Suddenly the guard makes his way to Brunette. Right then Brunette unfolds the paper in her hand and reveals it to be her own paper. White had betrayed her to loosen the competition. The guard drags Brunette out as she calls White a bastard. Okay, now this turned into survival in the streets of Chicago where you can't trust no soul except the one that you own. Following that, an angry Black says he will punch White while the lights out. By just saying lights out, this makes the lights go out. The group figured out that the lights, they are voice activated. They ask each other to be careful with what they say cause it might activate anything that they didn't expect. Can you imagine if someone says F me in the ass and people from nowhere enter the room and fulfill their request? Death starts crying again. White sits in front of him and bullies the poor guy into tearing his own paper. Since Death didn't want to be bullied anymore, he tore up his paper while crying. Poor Death was approached by the guard and he was escorted out. Damn, I hate bullies. If you hate bullies, type that in the comments section. Now only 5 of the candidates are left. Black belittles White for being an awful person, but White insists they should thank him for getting their competitors out. This reveals how White is a selfish person. He also claims that he knows what the question is, but then he refuses to tell them. In a fit of rage, Black knocks him out with a single punch. The group then ties him to a seat and covers his mouth with a tie. A while later, White gains consciousness. White asks for his medication, saying that he is also infected with the disease and that he has to take medicine every hour for him to leave. Black searches for the pill in his pocket but doesn't find it. This makes the group believe that White is just making excuses so they will free him. However, White claims that one of them has taken the pill and promises to tell them what the question is if they give it back soon. He loses consciousness again and starts to tremble. Some believe he is faking, but Black says he is having a seizure because of the disease. He might lose his life just like how Black's wife lost her life. So Black offers to help White despite being an awful person. This shows a lot of good personalities about Black. They start looking for the pill he was talking about but cannot find it in the room with only 15 minutes left on the timer. They searched each other for the pill since one person might have taken it while they were tying down White. Dark suspect Brown for taking it and is proven right by Brunette when she finds the pill stuck to some chewing gum under the table he was seated at. A gambler is always a gambler. She then tries to feed it to White, but Brown throws it in a drainage. As the others try to get it out, Dark takes the matter personally. She goes in front of the camera and asks the invigilator to save the man, and she doesn't care about the job as long as she doesn't leave with the guilt of letting White die on her radar. But since she talked to the invigilator, she is immediately eliminated. After she has gone, Blonde brings the pill out with a bobby pin and saves White's life. She also entices him in the process after he recovers. Everyone asks him for the answer. White reveals that the answers are the candidates themselves. They have been searching for a question all this time, but White thinks that there is no answer, and the one who is left at the end is the answer. This totally meant that the last person standing would be the answer regardless on what that person does to the others. Tension built up real quick as White runs to get the gun from the guard. Black pushes him aside and acquires the gun himself. He points it to White, who confidently claims that he won't shoot anyone simultaneously. He attacks Black and gets the gun. However, when he is about to use it, he realizes the gun has fingerprint recognition. So White uses the guard and points the gun at the others. He threatens everyone to get out of the room on their own so he can win the whole test. Brown doesn't retaliate with the fear of being shot and deliberately walks out, saying that White surely deserves it. A scared Blonde slowly walks outside, but yells lights out at the end. The room goes pitch dark, making White shoot in random directions. Then White yells light on and the lights come back. Black falls limp on the floor with a bullet hole in his chest. White looks around and sees Blonde still has a foot inside the room. He is about to shoot her as well, but notices that the timer has already run out. Now White walks to the camera and tells the invigilator that he is the winner of the competition. The guard approaches him and shows him the time. White is in shock to see they still have 20 seconds left, meaning that he is disqualified for talking to the invigilator. He looked at his watch and surely confirmed that there was still some seconds left. He was all in tears as all his efforts were brought down by his ego. It is then revealed that Death had changed the timer while he was being escorted out, and they were not attentive. At last, the only one left is Blonde. She walks into the room and picks up Death's glasses that had fallen while he was being taken out. Using those glasses, she looked at the paper and sees question 1 written on it to her utmost surprise. Death enters the room, revealing that he is the CEO of the company, and was in the test to keep an eye on all candidates' characters. Remember when he was crying and saying that he can only see the images of all candidates? Yeah, I think he was speaking in parables and only an intelligent candidate would understand. Blonde walks up to him and says there was no question on the paper. The CEO and the invigilator smiled, seeing that she has figured out the question and passed the test. It turns out when the invigilator asked them if they had any questions at the beginning of the test, it was the only question they had to answer. The whole exam was set to test the candidates' intelligence and attentiveness. They hire Blonde as the CEO's secretary, but she doesn't accept the job because she doesn't want to work with an organization that kills. The invigilator reveals that Black isn't really dead and that the bullet that hit him is a capsule that heals the wound after penetrating the body. It is actually the magical bullet which has gifted life for millions. At last, Blonde accepts the job as she shakes hands with the CEO. You must be wondering if Black got a job since he did not violate any rule of the exam. Subscribe now, and if we get to 10K likes, I will make a part 2 of this film. Until then, stay motivated.